So what we're going to do now is we're going to make this a function so we could do it for another one. So we already used this new bit of code here called for I in range, and I'm going to put some new code right in front of here. I'll hit return, and I'll say def, and I'm going to give it a function name called draw square, and in parentheses I'm actually going to put CLR right now because we're going to actually do something where we throw the color a name, or we kind of pass a color name as we run the function. Now a function is basically just a collection. It's like a recipe. So we're taking all these things here and putting them together in a recipe and saying, hey, we're going to put this all together. That way, if we need to do it again, we'll kind of do it again with another square or another turtle. So or the same turtle. We could just recreate the same turtle. But I'm going to put color in here, and you could put all kinds of things. You can put end y and all kinds of parameters in here, but we're just going to put one for color. And then the important thing here is that you have just like the for loop, you have a colon, and then all these things that are inside here, they need to be indented. So you need to highlight all that and hit your tab key. So they all get indented kind of over one space. What's going to happen now, I'm also going to put this in here. So I'm not sure when in the instructions I tell you to do that, but I'm going to have this go in here now. So we'll put that all in there together so it creates a new turtle each time. And I don't need green because I'm passing a color. So I'm going to take that out and I'll just put color. And you might say, well, what color is it going to use? Well, if I run this now, nothing is going to happen. And since I copied this stuff and I put it here, I don't need this. So delete this. Don't have an extra instance. Our instance is going to be inside the function. So we're inside this function, we're creating a turtle, we're giving it a shape, we're giving it a color to be determined, and then it's doing all its neat stuff. Now if I run it, nothing's going to happen at all because I'm not calling the function. This is defining the function. This is like making a recipe and saying, hey, look, here's a recipe, but you didn't cook anything yet. So now we got to cook it, and we're not going to cook it, we're going to call the function. So this is the function definition, and again, it has def keyword, it has a name that you create, no spaces, everything like variables, no numbers in the beginning, no spaces, no keywords that Python already uses, and this can be empty or it can pass a argument that we're going to pass to it. We'll pass a color to it when we call the function. So I'm going to go down here and call the function, and I'll make sure it's not indented. I don't want it inside the function. And I'm going to do, just to call it is easy. It's just draw square. And you could copy it so you don't mess it up. And then I'm going to send an argument along. I'm going to say, make it green. So I'm going to draw square green. And what's going to happen when it comes through the code, the code's going to import turtle. It's going to set all these variables or assign all these variables. And then it's going to go down. It's going to say, oh, you have a function definition. And then it's going to go down here and it's going to say, okay, call the function. And then when it calls the function, it's going to use this. So you can't have the function call before the definition because it'll say, well, I don't know what to call. It has to know that this exists before you actually call it. So you need the recipe before you actually call it. So let me run it and see what happens. And there's my turtle. And it looks okay. That's just by calling a function. Now if we called a second function, this is the second part of this. I'm going to call another one after this here. And it's still called draw square, and this time I'll make it purple, or you can make it any color you want as long as it's a standard color and as long as it's in quotes here. But what it means, it's going to receive a color amount, and that's going to receive a color amount. So when it creates the turtle, whatever you give it down here in the function call is going to get replaced here, and it's going to make it that color. So if I draw one that's purple, we'll see what happens. There's my green one, and there's my purple one. Now, unfortunately, it's drawing it right on top of each other. So what's going to change? Well, what's going to change is going to be our start y, because it's going to be down further, and also our end y is going to be down further. But maybe we can make them depend on each other. So what we can do, there's different ways to do this. So let me just kind of point this out. We could actually send arguments and put an end y down here and start y, end y when we do that. But the way we did it in class is we just kind of went in between here and readjusted the start y and the end y before the second function goes. So before we draw the purple one, we're going to update it because otherwise it'll use the same one. So what I'm going to do down here.
Hey, this is Professor Homa. I'm coming to you from fall 2019, and I'm interrupting this video from 2018 because I was just about to make a change here and put something in between here, and actually in fall 2019, there's a better way to do that than the way I did it in the older video or in the current video up to this point. And what I'm going to do here is use another parameter and use another argument to change the start y. Now we originally put the start y here as 0. I'm going to get rid of that for now. And I'm going to leave this here for now. I don't know if that's going to change or not. I originally just put start y minus 25 here in fall of 2019. So I might just leave that here and I'll comment this out. I'll see if this works or not. I'll see if we can use ny. But for now, I'm just going to go in here and put start y minus 25 so that I have start y here and I have start y minus 25 here. Remember, the whole idea of this function is to be flexible so that we can just kind of give it arguments on the fly and use the same function and reuse the same function. It's kind of like in football, if you go up to the line of scrimmage and call a play, that's what we're going to do here. Normally with the variables like this is kind of like calling a play ahead of time and then putting them in there. And here what we're going to do is actually call a play on the fly. So we're going to send in the y value because that's also the other thing that has to change here. We were able to change the color by sending in an argument to the parameter up here. Now what we're also going to do is put a comma here and call this start y. We could use the same name. It's almost like a variable inside the function. So I'll use start y, and I still have start y here, so it's still going to be using it. Whatever I put in is using it here, and then it'll use it down here and subtract 25 from it and go down further. Now what we have to do, if we have two parameters up here, one for color and one for start y, down here we're going to have to send two parameters. If I tried to send this right now, if I tried to run it, what would happen is I would get some kind of error down here that says takes exactly two arguments, one given. So there's only one given here. So let me try to give a second one, and I'm just going to give the actual value. So I'm just going to put in 0. So down here we're kind of putting in the actual values, kind of like an algebra problem where you're solving and you're putting in the numbers to make sure it works. And if I run this again with 0, with the start y at 0 now I didn't do it for this one yet, but that one's going to have the new start y. Now what's happening is I'm sending in a color, and it's going to use green, and it's going to use 0. So it's going to go to start x, which is 0, 0, and it's going to draw our green square. And then it's also going to take it and go down a little bit. So let's see what happens here with the first one. The first one should be fine. And there it is. And it's doing that, and it's not running the second one because I get an error because I don't have two arguments down here. I just have one. So let's put a second argument. And our second argument is actually going to be putting the square down like negative 150 from the original. So we're actually going to put the actual value here. So I'll put negative 150. So that's our new, that's almost like what I'm doing here down in the function call by sending an argument in is almost the same thing as if I had a variable up here. So that's why I took the variable out of here. And the variable now is getting filtered into the function here. So whatever I send, purple, negative 150 is going to go in here, and then that's also going to filter where it finds that name. So color is going to get filtered here in the right position where it has color, and start y is going to get filtered in the right place where it has a go to, and it's using a y coordinate. So now that should actually work. So let me run this, and now it's going to draw the green square. It's going to go to its position. Now that's going to come out and go around and move there too. Now I think I fixed this. I think we did this ahead of time so that you don't get a purple line, because sometimes what happens is you get a purple line and it goes down here and you have to use the pen up. But we already used the pen up right here, so this lifts the pen up. So it looks like we already had that in there, and from the previous part of the video I think we might have had that as well. If you didn't do that yet, make sure you get this line in here. If you're getting the purple and it's drawing a line, you may not have this pen up line in here. I'd have to look at where I left off at the previous video, but make sure you have pen up here if you're getting a line down here. And then also, when we did this in class, we actually just put absolute values here. We just originally just had a minus 25 here, so that's another thing. Make sure you put the start y here too, so it goes start y minus 25. Now I'm just going to see, I didn't do this in class, but if I create something called ny up here and I make it be start y minus 25, see, it's coming up yellow because there is no start y to work with. So I don't even think it'll use it. Even if it gets given a start y here, I still don't think it's going to work there. You know, even if I put end y in here, I don't think that's going to work. It's not going to, no, I still don't think it's going to work. Let me try it. No, it still doesn't know because I'm referencing start y here, but start y isn't set up yet. Start y is only set up when you run the function, when you call the function. So there's no start y up here. So I'm actually going to get rid of this ny. So we're not going to use an ny at all. We'll just use an end x. And because we're using start, because we're generating a variable on the fly with a parameter, that's how we're using it. So we're not using the kind of the set variable over here. These are kind of absolute variables that they're going to get thrown in and used. But because we're changing these on the fly, that's why with actual numbers in here, here it's a 0, here it's a negative 150, we can't use something that's kind of hard-coded in here unless it's going to stay that way. So I'm just going to put start y minus 25, and then that should work okay. And now I'll do that. And now it should work okay. And if you have any other issue, make sure that you get the pen up in here, and then make sure that you also have start y minus 25 here. And then however you change this, you could change the colors at any point. I could make this, red. I can make a red one and run this. So it's kind of, by using these arguments that you're sending into the parameter settings, you could be very flexible with this. Also, you can make another one. Just for example, if I made a third, and I made one, I'll put this one back to green, and I'll make this one orange. Now the problem I'm going to run into, it's going to get cut off down here. Trinket doesn't give us a lot of flexibility to expand our screen down here. So if I do this and I put it at like minus 300, it's going to get cut off. You might see a very little bit of it, and I'll see what happens here if I run it. But you can see I don't have to do anything else now other than just give it these two parameters. Parameters it's looking for is color and start y, and I'm giving it a new color and a new start y. So now if I run it, I get my green because I changed it back to green. I'm getting my purple because I have my purple one. And then I should see a little bit of an orange one barely. And I don't even see, I just see the top of it right there. I could move these all up if I wanted to. If I wanted to put this at 100 and I wanted to put this at minus 50 and then maybe this at 200, I'll see a little more of it here. You could certainly play around with these if you wanted to do that, but we don't have a lot of flexibility to go up and down here without adjusting some of these other things, like the minus 25. Might have to be less or something like that. So it's a little less. So now there's my first. Now you can see the turtle is closer to it. And that's kind of the idea. We're still not seeing this here. And these numbers certainly could be closer if we wanted to. But that's the whole idea of using these function calls, of instead of copying and pasting code and going through and trying to make edits, what we're doing is we're calling out, instead of setting variables here, which are a little bit harder to change throughout, we're using kind of temporary variables on the fly. So we're kind of setting the variables here and throwing them in here as we go. So they're kind of like variables that are kind of temporary, or variables that are kind of getting sent just for the function. And that's what we're doing there. So we're giving the variables, we're assigning the variable values here once the function gets called. Up till now, it just has placeholders waiting for those values to come in here. So it makes it a little more flexible in terms of doing something like this, that you can do one function. Because in the previous video, or where I stopped the video, we put little bits of code in here to kind of change some things. And why change things when you can continue to use these arguments here to actually make the changes? So that's what we're doing here. You don't have to do the third one. I'm just messing around here just to show you the flexibility of it, but I'll kind of put it back at the way it was. And again, just one last thing, just to show you, and I think that's why I had shape in here. Let's say you wanted to change the shape of the turtle. You wanted this a turtle, or this a square and this a triangle. Let's make this one a square and this one a triangle. So to do that, I could set up another parameter. I'll call it shape. And I'll put a comma here. And now I don't like to use the same name as the property, but this will still work. So if I put in shape here, I could copy it, and instead of using the hard-coded turtle shape, I'll put in shape. So now it's kind of like a variable. But now if I run it, I'm going to get an error because now I have it's looking for 3 arguments because there's 3 parameters up here, and I'm only sending 2. So now I have to send a shape. So now I'm going to send a square, and this one I'll send a triangle. So now I have 3 arguments that I'm going to send in. I have 3 parameters, and they should match up now with the commas. So now if I run it, I'm getting that little square is creating the first one, and then I'm getting a triangle that's creating the second one. So using these arguments down here makes the function a lot more flexible. And again, when you turn this in, you're going to save it, and you're going to turn it in the same way. I'll probably just continue the rest of the video.
So this is the finished product. When you're done with it, remember that in Trinket, you're going to save it, and then you're going to share it, and you're going to go here to link, and you're going to take link, and you're going to click on there, and you could copy this, whether you right click and copy, or whether you just Control C or Command C, whatever you're doing. And then when you go back to coursework, you're going to go down to Unit 6, at least for this one, and for turtles, variables, loops, and you're going to click on it, and you're going to add a comment, and you're going to go on the insert link and just paste it here. I'll do Control V, and you want to have text to display. You could change the text to display. Make sure you change this to new window, because that makes it easier for me, because then when I click on the link, it makes a new tab, and then I don't have to hit the back button all the time to get back to my Warren, because you know how that is. So I'll hit OK, and I'll hit save. And then when I see your exercise, I just go and click on it, and it opens it up, and I check it out, and I hit your run button, and I go, wow, look at that. Look at the nice job they did there. And there it is.